everyone, and welcome to this special live edition of the Conversation with Nadine Matheson podcast. And we're doing a crime fiction special for Black History Month. And I've got three amazing authors with me today. First up, I've got Dorothy Koomson. And Dorothy, I need to get the number right. Is it 20 years or 21 years?
It's 21 years this year.
And is it 18 books or 19 books?
It's actually 21. Well, it'll be 21. Wow. By February, it'll be 21.
You always get it wrong. 21 books by February. So well done to you. And next up, we have Adenle Alonge, who is the author of the Pretty Boy series. So thank you, Adenle.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. And then finally, we have Leye Adenle, who is the author of the, is it Amarke thrillers? Did I pronounce it correctly? Thank you so much for joining us. So my first question for you is nice and easy. Why crime fiction? Anyone can start.
I can jump in.
Okay.
I think for me, it was and is what I enjoy reading, and so it is just, you go in the world, you read it, and you really enjoy it, and then you start to, at least for me, you sort of start to create worlds in your own head or correct stories. You read something and you're like, oh, that could have ended differently, or you could have done that differently, or you could, and then you start to do that, and then from that you start to create stuff of your own self, and you think, oh, I can do this, and it's just out of that passion, out of that enjoyment. And when you enjoy something, you sort of understand the beats of it. You understand how it works rather easier than other genres, and so that's why I started crime fiction, because I really enjoy it. So that's me.
What about you, Dorothy? Because that is not where you started.
I did not start with crime fiction. I started off with, I had two romantic comedies, The Cupid Effect and Chocolate Run. And then I made people cry for a bit. And then I came to my sixth book, The Ice Cream Girls, where I wanted to tell a story about two women who'd been separated by 20 years and then brought back together, but it wasn't like a happy reunion. And then I thought, oh, what if they'd both been accused of a crime, the same crime, and one of them went to prison and one of them got away with it. And so I started telling this story, and I got to the end. It was like proper whodunit, because when I started writing, I didn't actually realize who did it, who was going to be the killer. So I got to sort of like 2/3 of the way through. I thought, oh yeah, that's who killed him. So after that, I thought, do you know what? I really enjoyed that. I might do it again. So I started writing sort of emotional thrillers, as I called them, sort of like crime books that have a real crime element, but they aren't just focused on crime. They are about the emotions of people involved.
What about you, Leye? Why crime? What drew you to it?
Crime,
Yes, crime.
Yeah, that's what drew me to it,
Just crime in general.
You know what they say, if you cannot do it, you teach it.
So you didn't fancy being inside prison for a while. You just thought, I'll just write about it instead.
Yeah, because, contrary to what people say, crime pays,
Yeah.
I mean, look around the world. The billionaires of this world are amazing criminals. They don't pay taxes. They destroy the environment. Who gave billionaires permission to mess up, space, to fill space with their junk and all of that, to ruin the environment? Nobody did. So crime really pays. And then being Nigerian, people look at me and they think criminal. I thought, man, let me own it.
So you're taking control of the narrative. Is that what you're doing?
Dude, if they believe it's in my blood, I might as well make some money from it.
Exactly.
So you're living vicariously through your characters.
I'm living intentionally through them. If you read my book, you would have the blueprint for my future crime. I just haven't perfected it. But seriously, on a more serious note, Dorothy says something which is so important in writing, I think. When you don't know who's done it, the writing is beautiful. Do you agree? Like, if you don't know the end of the story, if you have a, you just, I mean, it's wonderful, and that's why I love crime, because I'm writing with a total plan, and I'm just enjoying what my characters are doing. I'm screaming at my characters. It's like reading a book you're the first person reading this book. I think it's beautiful. We're very lucky to be able to work in this genre, I think.
Do all of you plan your novels, or do you just take, just see where it goes when you sit down in front of the screen?
I plan.
How far? How much?
Planner. You know that, Eamon. You look like a planner.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. I am going to own it.
It is a real compliment.
I plan quite. This is sort of like like the Pretty Boy series. I planned it to be a 3-book thing, and I planned, so I know every sort of beat that happens in it from the beginning. But a bit like Leye, things change while you're writing it. So the plans are subject to change, but I do have a structure. So the way I sort of write is, a lot of the writing is done on my notes while I'm walking around. When I actually sit down to do the typing, it's all done. And I just go through it. So that way, I'm an extreme planner, I would say. But the plan is, is constantly evolving.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you allow yourself to be surprised, even though you have a plan in place?
Yeah, because even like A Good Day to Die, one of the characters that people love, I killed them off in the first 10 pages. Initially in my head, I just like, do you know what I mean? Because I thought I liked the shock of it, of them just, that just happened. And then I just thought, nah, I think she'll be good here, and she'll be good there, and she'll be good there, and I think she'll be good. So I kept her on, and I kept her on, and I kept her on, and now it's like, I love the character so much. So, it does, and even like, her characters has sort of changed through all the 3 books, because she was only supposed to be in one for 10 pages. But that sort of thing, sort of evolved. So yeah, I'm a planner.
Yeah. What about you, Dorothy?
I'm not a planner. I'm just the person who kind of sits down and writes. And do you know what? I have an idea.
It scares me.
I know. I can see you. I can see the fear, Nadine. I can see you going.
I'm scared.
I actually have an idea for a book, and then I'll have a what if scenario. What if this happened? For like with Every Smile You Fake, it was like, what if I left a book event, went to my car, and there was a baby on the back seat? What would I do? Where would this baby come from? And so I kind of have this idea, and then I would have ideas about what happens, what scenes happen, but often I won't know what happens in the end. Sometimes I will, and sometimes I'll write that. If it comes into my head, I'll write it down. So I write the end, and then the end very rarely kind of turns out how I originally wrote it. As I get to know the people and the characters, and as the story evolves. One of my books, it's called That Day You Left. I had this whole ending all written, and I thought I was well ahead of the game, and I'd written it, and then I wrote the rest of it, and then I got to the end, and it was just like, yeah, that doesn't work. So I rang up my agent, and I said, so if this was a scenario, would this happen? Nah. So I rang my editor, and I was like, so if this was a scenario, would that? They were like, no. And I was like, oh, geez. So I had to unpick everything I'd put in to get to the story to this, to make it. So I learned a lesson, and that lesson was that I'm going to do it over and over again, because that's what I'm like. That's who I am. So no, I don't plan, but it's part of the getting to know people. Like when you get to know people in real life, and you find out different things about them, and you learn different things about them. That's what it's like with writing a book for me. As I get to know the characters, and the things happen, and scenarios happen. I mean, there's certain things that I kind of need to happen. I kind of get to know how they respond to those situations, but I learn about them as I go along.
What about you, Leye? Because I was thinking what Eamon was saying about writing characters and having a plan for them in the beginning. And I had that with the last book I just wrote. I had a whole plan for this one character that was going to kill them off. Like, I knew I was going to kill them off from day one. Like, you're going to die. I'm looking forward to the point when you die. And I got to about 3 points in, and I just thought, I don't think I'm gonna keep you. I think I'm gonna keep you. I don't know what I'm gonna do with you in the next book, but I feel like I'm gonna keep you. So how do you feel when you get to those moments?
Good question. I was lucky to be in the audience when at Harrogate, when Grisham and Lee Child were on the stage, just the two of them having a chat. And then somebody in the audience asked the question, right? Do you plan your stories or do you just wing them? And Grisham, lawyer, talked about this very meticulous way in which he plans it, you know, which I won't be surprised if that's what you do, Nadine.
Yeah,
So,
and amen.
Yes.
man, absolutely.
Two
The lawyer-
lawyers.
It's me and you, Leye, against the world.
yeah, we're winning. Come on. ChatGPT is going to take over their jobs very soon. Don't worry.
Let's hope not. No.
Anyway, so they ask him this, right? They ask both of them, and Grisham is first to answer. And Grisham illustrates, it talks about how he does his entire character Bible, how he has color-coded plans, and everything is like a proper project plan. He has everything planned before he puts pen to paper. I thought, damn, that's what I'm doing wrong. But then I thought, I'm happy he does that because, you know, I hope that's what lawyers do. I hope if I ever have a podcast. So, and then he came to Lee Child, and Lee said, I don't plan. He said, I end the chapter on what's his name? Jack Reacher jumping off a cliff. And I don't know how he's gonna survive. But I'll come back to it tomorrow, and I'm not gonna be bothered about it. Why? Because how he survives is not my problem, that's Jack Reacher's problem. I was like, hallelujah, that's how I write. I look forward to how Bobby Fatokun, my new character, is going to save the day. I look out to how Amaka is going to get some thieving politicians and, you know, make them face justice. I look forward to finding out how my characters get out of sticky situations. You know, and if I've planned it ahead, I feel like I feel your brain is in a different configuration when you're planning than when you're in flow and it's just coming out. That's when some writers, especially the literary writers, they talk about it landed in my head in whole. It was inspired. It's bullshit. You're just writing. It's not inspired and no, I don't know. You didn't tap into some unique wavelengths that the likes of us cannot connect with. You're just in that state called flow. You can see musicians, jazz musicians, you know, you can see when a quartet is playing, you can tell when they're in flow because it's just walking, you know. And as writers, or we get into flow. You know, you get into that space where you're just writing. You know when you have time blindness when you're writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. That's when you're in flow. And when you're in that situation, when you're in that state of mind, your brain just does amazing things. It just does what the human brain is capable of. You know, so long as you're enjoying what you're doing, it's slightly difficult, but you're enjoying it, and there's instant reward from, you know, oh, look at the beautiful lines I wrote. I cannot wait until my editor just deletes all of them, you know.
But what do you do in those moments? Because, you know, those moments when it's flowing, those are good moments. When you lose track of time and you look at your word count, you're like, I don't know how the hell I did 3,000 words today, but somehow I managed it. But then you have the other days when I say it's like pulling teeth. And if you manage to get 350 words down, you're like, well, it's something. So what do you do when it's not flowing as you'd like it to?
You know, it's interesting you should say pulling teeth, you know. Think about it, right? You turn up at a dentist's clinic, right? They put you into that torture chair. you know, they put the apron on you, they put the glasses on you, you open up your mouth, they pour this kind of stuff into your mouth, and then the dentist goes, that's a bad hole. That must really hurt, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm sorry, I've got dentite block. I can't work on you today. It is a job, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I
Job.
always say as well. It's a job. You have to take it seriously. And
Yeah.
it's the best job in the world. You know, I love my job, but it is still a job. And this is what I was talking to Kit DeWall about it a couple of weeks ago. We did an event together. We were both talking about this, how, you know, people say, oh, I can't write today. I've got writer's block. You know, if you worked in a supermarket, you exactly like a dentist, you wouldn't be going, oh, I can't scan today. I've got scanner's block. No, you have to do it. You have to push through it. And, you know, so if it isn't coming, if it isn't flowing, a bit isn't working, I will write something else. I'll write another part. I'll go to another part. Or, you know, Kit was saying that, you know, she just writes a different thing altogether. She gets herself out of that, you know, being in her head. But for me, it's just, I'll just go, because I don't have to stick to writing first chapter 1 to chapter 50. I will just start writing chapter 27. I'll put big capital letters. I'll put write more, and then I'll go and write something else. And then I'll come back to write more and I go, oh God, what was this meant to be again? Because I have no clue. But you've got to take yourself seriously. You've got to take this seriously as a job, because if you don't, readers don't take you seriously, and people feel like they shouldn't have to pay a proper amount for your work because they think you're just having the time of your life and you're floating around. And it's for other people. And I know I'm kind of sounding mean because I'm saying you have to get on with it, but if you want to do this as a job and it's a serious job for you, then you really do need to find a way to push through the pain, as it were.
Yeah.
What about you? What about you? So I was going to ask Eamon, what does he feel? Because we're both lawyers, and you know, you're right. I couldn't turn up to court and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not doing it. I'll do your closing speech tomorrow. Like, I couldn't do that. So I understand, but on the other hand, I'm like, it's mean. Just like push through. What about you, Eamon?
Unfortunately, I'm with Leye and Dorothy. I push through. Yeah, I just push through. And I think that the issue for me with the push through is, so I think for the second book, I took up the first book. I took, I think, 2 weeks off, and I know I had to finish it in 2 weeks. Obviously, I know everything that's happening, so there's no faffing about. You know, I'm there, and I do it, and I treat it like a job, like I treat everything else. You wake up, you do it. You have a break, you do it, and you keep going. And if you have writer's block, I guess, then you go off and play with your kids, or you go just watch television for a bit. But you know, at the back of your head, it's working. And then you have a time limit. And then when that's done, you come back and sit down and you look at it, and you know, like, especially like, I know I'm on the clock. I know I have to get it. And for me, as I said, because I'm sort of like an extreme planner, that doesn't really happen that much. It usually happens with dialogue, which is the only thing I free flow. You know, dialogue, I love dialogue. So I just go and I like it to be in a rhythm and whatnot. And so I sort of go and when I'm sitting down and watching whatever, you know, could be Love is Blind or whatever, you know, I am having that dialogue in my head, and my wife is like, can you see that? I'm like, yeah, sure. But so I'm just going back and forth. So you have to treat it like a job. You enjoy the job, you love the job, hopefully. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. But you just have to treat it like a job. I
think that's the thing. Even when you stop, whether it's because of writer's block or whether it's because you've naturally just come to a place where you need to stop, your brain is still going. You're still working through scenarios and conversations and plots. It doesn't stop, I don't think, as a writer. Even when you do have those moments when I don't know what's going on, it's only when you go off for a walk or do something completely different that the solution comes to you.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing. I know it does sound mean, but it isn't if you think about it, because other people do their job, but also you're kind of indulging yourself a bit, and you need to be serious about what you're doing. You know, like I say, it's the best job in the world, but you have to be serious about it. You have to take it seriously. And readers are brutal because, you know, I mean, I'm a brutal reader. I read something and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you joking? This is what you're putting at the end of this. This is what you're doing. I've gone through this journey, 350 pages, and you're doing this to me. No. No. And I think that I remind myself of that when I'm writing, and that's why I'm quite hard on myself when I do the editing and stuff of my books, because I remember that there's a reader sat there going, are you joking? And also that's what it's for. You know, you can write a load of nonsense, but you come back and you rewrite it, you edit it. That's the best thing about our jobs. You can, well, that, and you can get revenge on people. But the best thing about you can go back and do it better the second time. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever had anyone come to you and say, is that me in the book? Did you base that person on me? Because I feel like you did.
I you know what, I can't tell you this story, but there was one person, and I was so outraged. I'm gonna have to tell you off camera because I don't want this to go on the internet, so I will tell you off camera. And but yeah, there's one person who, yes, I'm still really mad. In fact,
what about you? What about you, Leye? Anyone in your books?
Nah, I will get into trouble. That said, there might be someone out there who really suffers from so-called writer's block, and thanks, amen, for giving a way to get out of it. There's two ways. A friend gifted me one, which is, if you feel like you can't write, just start writing. And if it's too painful to work on what you're supposed to be working on, then start with a sentence. I'm paraphrasing. I cannot write because, and then just get yourself writing that way. Another method that works for me is I look for someone and I say to them, hey, like I workshop what I'm trying to do with them, and then I start telling them about it, and then it works. And the third way is the most effective way. I get someone that lives close by, and then I call them and say, hey, listen, it's happened again, I'm coming over. I turn up at their door, press the bell, they open the door, they smack me in the face. Right?
Is this what you tell people? You get someone to slap you in the face, knock the words back into your head.
And then I can write after that,
Well, you'll be doing something after that, after someone slaps you in the face. The only thing that scares me, what Dorothy was saying earlier about the way she writes, I have a very linear brain. So I have to go 1, 2, 3 right to the end. I couldn't, if I was stuck, I couldn't like jump ahead to chapter 25 and start writing if I was stuck on chapter 4. I couldn't do that.
Well, one of the one of the writers I know, she was saying how she was really stuck with what she was writing, and she was near the end of the book and she just couldn't. And I said to her, you're not going to like this, but write the final chapter. And she was like, oh no, I can't do that. So I said to her, write the final chapter. I promised you, write the final chapter. And she argued back and forth with me. And I don't know why people argue with me, because, I'm always right. But she did it. She eventually ran out of other things to do. So she went and she wrote the final chapter. And she said, while she was writing it, she absolutely worked out where she needed to go and where the story needs to go from there to get to there. So if you're a planner, like you say, then you've got an idea of the ending. So if you're stuck, write the final chapter. You don't have to keep it. No one's going to see it. No one's going to force you to keep it. But just write the final chapter, and then you'll see what is necessary, what's missing from what you're doing, what you're stuck with.
I'll keep it in mind. I wanted to ask, with your books, because I'm always interested in what comes first, whether it's your plot, whether it's your character, or is it just a scene? So, Eamon, with Pretty Boy, was it the story first, or did Pretty Boy come to you in your head first?
I think Pretty Boy came first, quite closely with the plot, but Pretty Boy came first. I always say this, I was on a bus. So a character came first, so not Pretty Boy itself. I was on a bus on the way, and there was a little kid, probably like 13, I would say, at the back of the bus, and he was on the phone, and he was on the phone, and he was screaming about coming to end somebody. It's like, I'm going to end him, and he was so loud. And initially, I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to turn around because this is not my business. I am not getting involved. And eventually, I just turned. I'm like, wow, he's a kid. And I thought, I almost laughed, but I just thought, this could go very badly. And then I just thought, I wonder what happens to that guy his entire day. Like, what is his day? Because he's not in school, unfortunately, and he's just this is his life, and what has led to this point? Who is he? What is he doing? Where is he going? Where is he going from there? Where is he coming from? And I just sort of fleshed out that particular person's life, who is in the book. He's in the book, but he's just in the book in 2 pages. But that's just the world. So from that world, it sort of opened up. So from that character, it opened up to the world, and then I've always liked the idea of like a sort of like a modern day samurai type person who has morals, but is in a world filled with evil and, all this. So then I created Pretty Boy, and Pretty Boy was my navigation through that world. But the world is the favorite part of the book for me, that inner city London world. And then Pretty Boy comes, and he just comes through it. So yeah, it was that kid first, and I always wonder what happened to him, and but yeah, it was that kid that just that was the trigger for me. So
man, one day you're gonna be talking about this in front of a huge audience, and that guy is just gonna stand up.
I'll absolutely deny it.
It was me.
And he was so loud and so aggressive, and I just thought, this is not right. But so initially you think it's a joke because like he's so loud and he's so he's spelling out what he's going to do to this other kid, and then but the more it goes into like, oh, this is just being serious, what I mean? And then I thought maybe he's just one of those dudes who just has a really high voice for an old person, and then I turn and I'm like, wow, what I mean? What are you gonna do? Yeah, but then I think this is it. Sort of happens in the book where the protagonist looks at a little bit like, what are you going to do? And then you sort of realize at some point that he has a weapon, and that instinct of just that sort of levels everybody. You just think, oh, what are you going to do? What can you do? What I mean? I can take you, but it's like, nobody's really taking anybody with hands nowadays. There are other things involved, and that thing that triggers, oh, okay, it could get really serious. No matter how humorous he looks to you, he could really hurt. And I think that is what I picked on.
Automatically, I'm just thinking of like what would happen afterwards was that I would end up in the youth court with them. And I'm always thinking, because I'm always thinking, how did you get here? Like 14, 15-year-olds. You said they're not using their hands, they're using weapons, they're getting involved in things they got no business getting involved in. And I'm wondering, how would they get to that point? What about you, Leye? What came to you first with your marker thrillers? Is it the characters, a scene?
It was just the idea of what was going on. The way the entire series came about, the story, the character, everything was a conversation I had with hello. It was a conversation I had with my brothers and my mom. And we talk about everything in the world, So we were talking about you keep Lagos Ibadan Express Road. You keep finding mutilated, naked young women, and my mom dedicated. She's Amaka is based on her. Someone who's dedicated her life to women. She was PAM secretary, women's affairs, and all of that. But she really took it very seriously. And even late into her retirement, she would still write papers for government and, saying, hey, listen, this might be a good thing to do. And she'll just hand it and just forget about it. So we have such deep interest. So we talk about everything, not just important stuff. Actually, everything we talk about is important. But this particular day, we were talking about these bodies that end up on this road, mutilated. And for some reason, we did the same thing everybody does. We assumed they were sex workers, almost as if your job is an excuse or is the reason you've been murdered, like. But because there's sex workers in Nigeria where sex work is illegal, when they do die, it hardly gets investigated. If you're going to be a sex worker in Nigeria, I kind of found out, I don't know if it's with everybody else, you're going to school or something, you're trying to, pay your way through, you go and do it in a different place. So you don't do it in Ibadan where you grew up. You go to some other states where nobody knows you, right? So everybody thought it was sex workers. So us four, we were talking about how to protect people from, getting killed in this way. We talked about everything from legalization to decriminalization to, we talked about everything, but just talking, it just occurred to me, what if there's another angle to this? People always assume because the bodies were mutilated that, they used them for some black magic ritual, which is total BS. Anybody that tells you I'm a witch doctor, I'm gonna do something for you, it's just bullshitting you. He doesn't believe it. He knows it's impossible to do that. It's the equivalent of a Pentecostal pastor. Yeah, he just doesn't have a big choir behind him. No tailored suits and all of that, but it's essentially the same thing, selling miracles to the gullible,
I'm scared now. I'm sitting here bold. Like, you're bold, mate.
What are they gonna do to me? Curse me?
I don't know. I'm just like, ooh.
Actually,
Dorothy's going to church tonight.
I believe that organized religion is like organized crime. And the evidence is in front of us so blatantly we ignore it. Do you mind how many bodies they found? Right? In is everybody here Catholic?
I'm putting up my hand.
We're not talking about that then, but
Let's move on.
a lot of crime has been committed in the name of God, man, and it's still
Yes.
been
But I'm not going to disagree with you at all. Because that was like my second book in the binding room. It's all about what people do in the name of God, and I suppose it just goes on to where you find your inspiration from when you are writing. But you find it in so many different ways, literally in your own backyard. Sometimes.
Oh yeah. It's the Femi Kayode, an amazing crime writer from Nigeria.
Yeah, he is.
So he wrote this book, Light Seekers.
Yeah, I like them. I like that.
Oh, brilliant.
That was brilliant.
Both are religion, aren't they?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Both of his books are religion.
Light Seekers and Gaslight more so. I think.
Both about religion.
Yeah, actually, because the dude in Gaslight, without giving it away, was Catholic, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
It was a super church. It was a super church, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But I have nothing against religion. I'm a very religious person myself. Why are you laughing? For real, I am.
Why are you laughing? Because the way you just bashed it down, and now you're going,
No, I'm not.
Now you're seeking redemption.
No. I have nothing against any religion. I believe in the truthfulness of every religion.
Yeah.
I recently, as my latest act of self-decolonization, I became a babalawo.
I don't. You have to explain that.
What? I don't know.
I know what you mean.
I'm Grenadian. I don't know what that is. You have to explain it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is, right? I decided to I became initiated into the priesthood of the Yoruba people's indigenous belief system, indigenous religion, that has a book. Our holy book, the oral corpus is called the Oduifa, is with 256 books and thousands of verses, is many times larger than the Bible. And this book contains the medicine of the Yoruba. In fact, if I were to become a practicing Babalawo, my first 5 years of my 18 years, training would be learning medicine. learning leaves and roots and how to prepare them and what they're
Mhm.
used for. And so this 256 books contains the history of the Yoruba, contains our worldview, it contains our cosmology, our creation myths, our dances, our music, our great poems. The great poems of the Yoruba people are in there. It contains everything about us, really. And what I love about it is that it's, for want of a better word, it's God speaking to me in my language. Better still, it's peopled by people that look like me. These gods and all of them. The angels we don't even have angels, but what you might call an equivalent, not really. They don't have names like Michael, like Gabriel, like the hell?
What's your name, Gabriel or Michael? Nothing wrong with those names.
There's
They don't
nothing
have
wrong
to
with those.
have Yoruba, they have
Right.
African names, So yeah,
I'm gonna
religious.
I'm gonna put a question up because
Sure.
Leia brought up people looking like us. So for Morris Francis said, "Good evening, guys. What are your thoughts on the upcoming black female-led detective show, Ellis?" So I don't know if you've seen the trailers for it. DCI Ellis on Channel 5.
Is it Channel 5? Okay. I saw the
Yeah.
advert on Alibi, I think. I saw the adverts for on Alibi. It's got that actress Sharon. Is her name Sharon? I really
can't
like
remember her name.
the actress, so I'm interested to see what it's like. I don't know. I don't know who wrote it, so and that will kind of influence it, and also who made it. So I'm going to give it a chance.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes before something arrives on your screens, and you've got to be aware of that, I think.
How important, because there are 4 of us on here, 4 black crime writers on the screen, and it is. I have my own thoughts about Black History Month. Like I always say, we're not just here for 31 days in October. We're here every day of the year. But how is it for you seeing more? I say more black crime writers coming out, being published. Even though in the beginning, I'll say this, when I was putting this panel together, I emailed Dorothy because I put together a list of black crime writers, and I think I came up with 15. And I was like, there can't be just 15. It needs to be it has to be more than 15, like being published in the UK. And I emailed Dorothy, and I think Dorothy gave me like another 4. And I was still, that can't be it. There should be more. So how does it feel to see us on screen and see more black crime writers being published?
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I grew up reading,
sorry.
Yeah, so I was going to say I grew up reading crime stories in Nigeria, by black people. A lot of the stories in the Paysetter series, Amen, you remember those?
Yeah.
A lot of them were crime, and they were written by Africans. And also some Yoruba crime stories, which are just amazing. If I start talking about that, we're not going to end the show today. Yeah, but it's brilliant. It's beautiful. I love it. We need more. And there are more. Do you know how many crime writers are published in Nigeria? See, the thing about Nigeria is Nigeria doesn't care about the rest of the world. It's like, look, Nigeria is enough for us. So you might not know about these people, but they're amazing crime writers in Nigeria. And I've been reading some new scripts that are coming out, and I'm like, dude, where have you been all my life? So yeah, it's a beautiful feeling. I hope we have more. I'm working with some people to try and do a black crime writing festival on the continent in Africa. I think that would be something if we have a crime writing festival in Africa. I think we'll then see just how many people are actually doing this. Fingers crossed that will work out.
Yeah, fingers. What about you, Dorothy? You're going to say something?
I was going to say, we've got to be careful though of this representation stuff, because just because they look like us doesn't mean that they are written by people who have experience of that life and those issues. And a lot of the time, they have to work for the white gaze, otherwise they're not. And for women, they have to work for the male gaze. So the white male gaze has to accept them. So a lot of the time you won't see representation, you won't see a thing that you won't see a story that is full, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I got told when I was trying to get published, and I was rejected by everybody in the Writers and Artists Yearbook twice. You know, the thing I kept hearing was, it's about a Black woman, but it's not about the Black experience. And for them, there's a very specific type of thing that is the Black experience. They want to read about, you know, people getting called the N-word and being beaten up by your Black boyfriend and stuff. They don't actually think that you could have a normal life. And sometimes, you know, with the Ice Cream Girls being on TV, it was absolutely great to see on TV, to have it on TV. But at the same time, there were so many issues with it. And one of the issues was that, you know, they made my character, who I made sort of like the girl next door, the everyday girl. She became this shouty, aggressive, typical Black girl, you know, rather than the character I wrote, as in stereotypical, the sort of the idea people have of a Black girl, as particularly a dark skinned Black girl. That is what they sort of like had the whole this. They rewrote my story to fit the narrative that they had, and that is what so that's why I think it's nice. It's great. One of the best things I think is to walk into a bookshop and to see Black writers all on the shelves. I never want, you know, all those years ago when I was top of the charts and all that business, I never wanted to be on my own. I always wanted to have other people writing different types of books, because again, a lot of the time I spent a lot of time being told I couldn't write romantic comedies, I couldn't write emotional books, I couldn't write commercial books, because, you know, Black people are meant to write literary books. You're meant to tell the people about the continent of Africa, or these, you know, you're supposed to teach them something rather than entertaining them. And I had to keep fighting that. And it's like, you know, and sometimes it feels like that fight hasn't ended, that, you know, but on the other side, you know, we've got all of us lot here, and there's lots of other people writing crime books, writing romantic comedies, writing emotional books. And that is just wonderful as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. What about you, Eamon? Did it surprise you that the number's so small? Because I think you and I were published around the same time. And I think if you see and if you got 2 or 3 Black crime writers coming out at the same time, it can create this false illusion that, oh, you know, everything's fine, but we're out there.
Yeah, but I do absolutely agree in that it needs to get better. And I understand the other end of it, that you don't want representation stake, but there's no way you are saying that there are only 15 talented crime authors. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It is absolutely impossible. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done with bringing them in the fold. Or just, you know, I think the issue with this is because it's art and it's very subjective. So people will refuse you for the most inane of reasons, and it can get frustrating. And then there's the other aspect of when you send your work out and you get a no. You know, I say this to other people trying to become lawyers as well. It's like, when you get a no, and if you're a white person, you just think, okay, they don't like me. But if you get a no as a Black person, you almost have to think first, did they say no because I'm Black? And you just have to, when there are more people like us in it, successful, not successful, middle class writers, really successful writers, struggling writers, just equality. And I think it's important, and just different stories as well, because I did have a problem, because when we were coming out, that was George Floyd, and so everybody expected your book to be, you know, this is how you know, like, no, this is just an enjoyable characters that are Black, you know, interacting in London, you know, there, because those people exist as well, and that's not the only thing. But at the same time, those books are important too. Other people can do it. I just think there's enough room for all sorts of genres, all sorts of things that we can write. And again, I'm not saying we're smarter, but we're definitely not less smarter. So it should be, there are people out there that can do it. They just don't believe the system is geared for them, so they're just not trying, which
Yeah.
is a bit sad, but I think it's important.
But they're also being
It's
told,
been-
that there is the Highlander mentality, which is really awful and punishing, and it is demoralizing for people. That sort of there can be only one. So, I know people have been told, oh yeah, we don't need you. We've got Dorothy Koomson. We've got Mallory Blackman.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, there is that
Yeah.
whole thing of there is like, there can
I
be.
need to say I need to say this story, So, a Good Day to Die comes out and we're going for meetings with, production houses about, adapting it. And we're in this meeting and this guy just very comfortably says, oh, Top Boy's around now. So we sort of have to wait for that to be over before we make your show. And everybody in the room is like, what are you saying? Don't say that in front of him. Because essentially he's saying that it can only be one of those, and there's a stark difference between mine and Top Boy. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is how he's thinking, and like the audience or people's brains are not big enough to have those, what are we doing to, London set, crime. And I'm like, oh wow, that is something. But it's there. But we just have to push through it and force our way through however we can.
It's so crazy because you wouldn't, if I look at myself in my series that I write, which is, a female detective, no one, I mean, you can count on more than one hand the number of white female led police detective series. But then, when
written by men, don't forget, some of them written by men as well.
Yeah, something written by men. But the equivalent would be someone then saying, well, we don't need another, we're not going to make Henley into a series because we've already got DCI Ellis on Channel 5, one series led by a black female, and that's enough. Like the world can't cope with anymore. That's just ridiculous.
And that, it's on Netflix, so everybody's watching that. So there's no, we can't compete. Nobody's going to watch your stuff. And it's like, okay. Fair enough.
It's just why you got to do things yourself. If you can find a way, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah. I view it this way: it's as a business. They want to make money. If they believe that what I've written is going to make them money, they will publish it. But when they say to us, or when they say to anybody, for these reasons we can't do this book now, it's not about. I don't think it's. Yes, it's because you're an African writer writing this, but it's not because of that. It's because we know the market. They've been in the industry for so long. They've been doing this business for so long. They're in the business of selling books, right?
I could accept that to a point, but not when I'm coming with you with, there's only 18 of us, and you're looking at crime. I'm using crime fiction as an example. It's the biggest selling genre out of all the books that are read by people. Crime fiction's number one, so I'm not going. Sorry, Leye.
It's both of them. It's crime fiction and romance, and both of them are really underrepresented. But I absolutely agree. I always say this to new writers all the time. It's a business. Publishing is a business. But from my days when I used to work in magazines, women's magazines, we would have 11 months out of the year we'd have white women, white celebs, white models on the front. The one time we put a black person on the front, our sales went through the roof because people would see themselves. They would buy it because it was there. There is a market there. There is a market there for it, but you have to get through all these gates, all these people gatekeeping and sort of saying it. And part of the problem is this whole mentality of there's people who will get a book and they'll say to you, we just didn't chime with it, we just didn't understand it. And a lot of times because they don't understand the language, or they have in their minds, this is how a black person's life is. And so therefore if it doesn't chime with that, it doesn't work. It's like, it's not realistic. I don't get on with the voice. And so therefore that business is being stopped. They're stopping people from getting access to it because, let's be honest, a lot of the books out, a lot of the top of the charts, it's manufactured. They tell you what to read, and they make it easier for you to find certain types of books and to fall in love with certain types of books because they're always there. They're everywhere. There's posters, there's this, there's that. Whereas, you know, there's other books, they'll go, oh yeah, we're giving you a really good campaign. And that campaign is adverts on Facebook. There's no chance of you getting to the top of the charts if you're not, you know, they've fulfilled their contracts, but you know, Facebook ads, much as I love them, they're not going to get you to #1 on the charts. They're just not. So it is a business, it absolutely is. But to get into the world of that business, you've got to jump through so many more hoops than other writers. And your story's got to be absolutely perfect when you send it in, rather than somebody who's like, oh, do you know what? I quite fancy writing this, and I'll send it in. Some of the things I see, and I'm like, really? You thought this was fine? Crying and my eyes out and going, this doesn't work. There's a plot hole here. And then this person's written something and it's like a million plot holes. So I was like, oh, so yeah, that's been published, yeah?
Right, there's some questions in the chat, so I'm gonna put one to you. How are you supporting young Black authors to use their voices in the writing space? Anyone?
Well, I spend a lot of time talking to young writers. I have mentored a couple of people. I started my podcast to give people the Happy Author, to give people an idea of what the publishing industry is really like, to give them because, you know, when I was starting out, there was nothing there. And if you don't know anybody, because everyone knows everyone in publishing, if you don't know anybody, it's really hard. So I started my podcast to give people an insight into the behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, I try and promote people's books as much as I can. I do my best. I know I can't do everything. I can't read everyone's books, but I do my best. So.
What about you, Leye or Naaman?
Well, what I'm doing right now is trying to get this crime writing festival up. I've been putting it out there, been telling people about it, because it doesn't need to be me who does it. Sorry.
I thought that was me. You should know better, Leye. Come on.
It's on silent. It's only because of
it was not.
No, it is, but because it's on the yeah, you know why it is? Because I've got the app on the laptop as well.
Excuses.
Hey. Yeah, that was Kamala talking about getting the Nigerian vote, but I'll call her back later. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to, so I've never said no to any publisher that says to me, hey, can you read this manuscript?
Same.
Right? So long as it's crime, I'm reading it. Right? I drop whatever I'm doing, I'm reading it. I've never given a bad blob. If there's something that needs to be worked on, we'll talk about it and we'll get to the stage where, yeah, this is amazing. And also I'm hoping that as a genre, we can make it huge in Africa. Well, not just Africa, but wherever we are, you know, in fact, the global South, right? And one of the ways to do it is to, I believe, have this crime writing festivals. No one knows to. Do you know how many crime writing festivals they have in France? It's almost like it's like every little village has its own crime writing festival, you know. So I'm thinking if we can have, you know, Lagos Crime Writing Festival, Accra Crime Writing Festival, Joburg Crime, you know, Kingston Crime. Come on, it'll be great. Because we'll be creating a market for this. We'll be showing people, hey, forget all those books where you have to sit through 40 pages to understand that this guy was talking about his dog all along. Like, come on. You know?
I always say 12 pages to describe an orange. And you're like, no.
Don't.
I read those books and I'm like, you know, as a crime writer, every word is important. If it's not moving the story, my agent, my editors are just gonna cut it out. You know, why would you leave? Anyway, let's not talk down on the others. They're also okay to read. But listen, if we can have crime writing festivals, I just looked at the time. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 5 minutes. So there's another question. Grace, did writing about such deep crime change your outlook on the world or how you view things mentally?
Not for me. I think because for me, I think we all live in a world of grey. I think we all have the capacity to be good and bad. And I think understanding that, and for me, as I said, for me, every character, even if they're on the page for just 1 minute, I build them. I know why they're there. I know why they're doing what they're doing. So there's nothing as pure evil and nothing as pure good. I imagine there might be that in real life, but in my books there isn't. So I'm a smiley, happy person in general, and that's not going to change. But when I write it, I give people a reason for being who they are. So
Yeah.
it sort of keeps me, because I know why I am who I am, and I sort of have a bit more empathy for people, I imagine. So I'm still it hasn't affected me mentally, but yeah, there are some dark stuff that happens in my books. Well, I'm good.
You're okay with it. What about you, Dorothy? Especially with every smile you fake.
Yeah, that was actually really disturbing, actually, writing Every Smile You Fake, because there was a lot of stuff that I discovered, stuff you kind of know about social media, about the online world, our online lives, because our lives are so much online. And I'm not talking about things like this. I'm talking about, payments and stuff like that. You have to register for stuff. You need a smartphone, and people can track you, and your data is sold and used by people, as Leye was talking about, with the billionaires who are just like they have all this information on you. So I think with each book I write, I learn something more about the world, and I did learn a lot from the Ice Cream Girls onwards about how the world views people. And I mean, recently there's been a lot of talk about the perfect victim, and the reason why I wrote Tell Me Your Secret was because of the idea of the perfect victim and how they don't exist. But women, this was about women, but women are expected to be perfect, and therefore if something happens to them, they have to justify almost people investigating the crime against them or what happened to them. So yeah, it kind of, my eyes have been opened in very many different ways the more I write crime books. Yeah.
What about you, Leye?
Yeah, mentally, writing crime stories has changed me in that I now think, damn, I can make a lot of money from crime. If I can write characters that can get away with crime, if I can think them up, dude, maybe I should be doing crime.
Maybe you should not.
Maybe I know.
That's the only change so far. That's the only thing that's changed. I started off with a criminal mind anyway, so that kind of helped. I think you're all criminals. You're not admitting it to yourselves.
Who, me?
You write crime. Yeah, you're criminals. You enjoy crime.
I know not what to do, but that's because of working in criminal law for 20 years. Can I get away with it? Yeah, I reckon I could. But that's not what
I reckon I could.
Special. Yeah, Aim and I reckon we could.
I reckon I could.
I'm afraid of the mind that comes up with the kind of gory details, right, in your book.
You talking about me?
Yeah, I think.
Say it, preach, mate. Because seriously, sometimes I go, do you know what? She's one of the nicest people I've ever met, but my goodness, some of the things she writes,
it's scary.
I am a delight.
You are
right. She gave me a ride home once. Was it from Harrogate? No, it wasn't.
Twice I've given you a ride home. One from Harrogate and one from Chiltern Hills.
I was scared throughout. I'm like,
no, you was not.
You saw me with her. I was texting people. Nadine's giving me a ride home. They thought
I'm not gonna make it.
They thought I was doing what we call in Nigeria famzing. Like, hey, look at me, I'm with the Nadine. No, I'm saying, look, last scene with. I've seen the way she kills people.
In my books, not in real life. Right, before we go, because this has actually been a delight, but we do have to go. But I'm going to ask each of you, what are you working on next? So, Eamon, what are you working on next? Because you said you only plan to do 3.
I only plan to do 3, but luckily, I guess, good problems to have. I am writing a standalone, separate other thing. I wouldn't say it's close to being autobiographical. It's about, you know, uh, a person that was raised in Lagos, going back to Lagos because his sister has been killed, to sort of not initially investigate the murder, but he ends up having to investigate the murder, and it's sort of like Nigeria in a different light. It's, you know, sort of high fashion, high music. You know, the other end of Nigeria, people are not really aware of, like extreme wealth, and you know, it will bring in politics and all the other stuff, but just people that live no different from, you know, exorbitant lives that you see everywhere else. People that think these things don't happen in Africa, but I wanted to just plant you in that sort of like life, like, oh, people live like this, and how crime sort of factors in there. And I think it'd be, you know, I'm really excited about it, and so I'm going to do it and go back to, you know, Pretty Boy series. So that is what I'm writing at the moment, and yeah, I'm.
Cool.
In case my agent is listening, yeah, I'm well ahead, well ahead, mate. Yeah.
So use these moments to let our agents know. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
writing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm putting a
I'm on
plan
it.
together. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. Dorothy, what are you working on next?
Well, the
working
next
on
thing,
now?
because of our project we're launching this week,
Yes.
I'm going to be writing this November. I'm going to be writing or starting the second Bacon detective novel. You know, I self-published the book that was connected to the character from my other husband. She's a writer and she writes the Bacon detective stories, and I wrote one. So I'm going to write the sequel because I enjoyed it so much. It was such a different way of writing. It wasn't a Dorothy Koomson novel. It was a Cleo Forsom novel, and I could do whatever I liked. So I'm going to be doing that next.
Okay. And you, Leye, what are you working on?
I'm working on a new series. It's called the Bad Coach series. It's a Nigerian former policeman who's an executive coach in the UK, but his clients are Metropolitan Police officers who've had a spot of trouble, like excessive use of force, unconscious bias, and stuff like that. So they send these people to their crime is not enough for them to be let go of immediately. So sometimes they send them to Bobby Fatokun, who's just going to talk to them and, you know, do what coaches do. And at the end of the day, it would say whether or not he believes that they can continue in their role. And once in a while, when these officers have experienced the power of coaching, they come back after the meta sent them to him. They come back when they're stuck with a case. And so he gets involved, being the coach of the investigator, he gets involved, being a policeman. The first book, Hallelujah, interestingly, it's about when the Pentecostal pastor blackmails the royal family. A retired.
You love church, don't you?
I'm not even being funny.
You're so cool. You just go there, don't you? You just don't care.
For real.
Takes it to a level.
For real, when the Pentecostal pastor blackmails the royal family, a retired spy carries out an unauthorized operation on the streets of London. And in the middle of all this is Bobby Fatokun, our man from Lagos. It's amazing.
I feel like I just have to. I'd have to add what am I doing? I am well, I finished my book 4 in my Henley series. So there's more stuff for you to be disturbed about, Leye, in that one. And so and I'm just enjoying my little bit of quiet, but I'm writing a short story, Hitchcock inspired at the moment, and then I'm planning a standalone. So that is what I am up to. So that just leads me to say, well, firstly, thank you to everyone who joined us, because I can see you all in the chat having a whale of a time. So thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. And can I say a special thank you to Leye Adenle, Eamon Alonge, and Dorothy Koomson for joining me for this special live episode of The Conversation. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very
much. I'm going to say goodbye to them, but I'll see you all later.
Thank you.